So this morning, I chose to speak on how happiness is an inside job. If you've lived long enough, I think most of us have, we start to realize that relying on the world for our happiness, relying on others for our happiness, relying on circumstances to be just so for our happiness is unreliable. Anybody notice that? Just when we get all our ducks in a row, right? And we just get all the people around us that make us happy and all the people that don't far away, someone steps out of line, right? I saw a joke this week where a pastor asked his congregation, now, if you know your wife controls you, move to the left. So all the men in the congregation moved to the left, except one. And the pastor looked at that one man and smiled and offered him a bit of praise, and the man says, "My wife told me not to move." Oh. Then there's that Zen joke. I finally achieved inner peace. I just realized I only need to control 100% of my environment 100% of the time. There's another way. There is another way where we're not dependent. We're not dependent on people and circumstances for our happiness. What if we embrace the present moment just as it is? Just as it is. And what if we time after time after time after time let go of forcing reality to match our desires? Could we do that? Is that possible? Is it? Yes, you're nodding. So it's very empowering. It's living without resistance, that always wants to argue with what's happening, always wants to argue with the present moment. It's being aware of what's going on inside, and at the same time being conscious and intentional with how we respond to outer experiences. Without reacting in ways that create suffering or that cause more suffering or that add to the suffering, right? There's a lot of power in taking ownership of our inner experience and feeling, like taking ownership of our inner experience versus feeling like we're subject to circumstances. It reminds me of a quote from Michael Singer, my first spiritual teacher. He said, "The moment in front of you is not bothering you. You are bothering yourself about the moment." I love that. Only you can take inner freedom away or give it to yourself. So I had a great chance to practice this week. Well, a couple weeks ago, I went downtown and I was in one of my favorite stores and I was looking for a nice pendant for a gift. And the man there, he was so helpful, and he told me everything about each pendant and all the different kinds of precious stones that they were. And he was just full of information and full of light and love, and we just had a great time. And so I looked at some pendants, and I picked out a couple I really liked, and I said, I'll be back, and I want to think about it. So I went back a few days ago, this week, and there was the same man, and I said, I want to look at those pendants again. Well, he was silent. And he got the pendants out, and I was looking at them, and I said, well, do you have chains? Could I look at some chains? And so he brought this rack of chains and put it on the showcase there in front of me. And so I was looking at the chains, and I went to, take one off, and I was having a little bit of a struggle getting it off. And he goes, well, now that you've tangled up all the chains, made a big mess, it might just take me a while to get that all straightened up again. And I just went, oh. And I had this feeling at that moment that he was disturbed inside, right? There is some inner disturbance. And then I noticed, he's got a cold, I think. Like he was hoarse and he was sniffling and he didn't feel well, right? So I said, well, you know what, I think I have somewhere I have to be, but I'll come back. And he goes, yeah, that's a good idea, with not even a little bit of sarcasm. So I walked out that door fast as I could, and I was walking down the sidewalk thinking, I was watching myself. I could really take offense at that, because that was just plain rude. But on the other hand, I was like, that guy didn't feel good. I could tell he should have been home in bed. And, I just felt in me that doesn't excuse that behavior, but I felt in me grace, a measure of grace. I could offer him grace and give him a break and just let it go, right? And so I did. I did. And I thought about that a lot, though. I thought about that. If the ego in me was really strong in that moment, I might have decided I will never go back to that store, The thought crossed my mind, but it was a very brief thought. And I thought, no, I love that store. And that guy's just having a hard day. And I would like people to be nice to me when I'm having a hard day. I'd like them to give me a measure of grace, right? So I did go back, good news. I did go back, and he wasn't there. He was probably home in bed, still recovering, but the people were super nice to me, and it just was a happy ending. But one of my mantras is that I really want to live, and I offer this as a beautiful suggestion, is blame less, forgive more. Blame less, forgive more. That brings a lot of inner peace. It really does. And it requires choosing love and choosing grace and releasing the need to hold grudges. To blame others or to blame life for unhappiness is to give away our power, isn't it? Right? To have free will, which we all have, is a magnificent gift. It's a magnificent power. It's a superpower that we get to use to respond to people, to the world, to life. And it's the one thing that we can control, when so often we can't control the world, we can't control people, we can't really control circumstances a lot of the time. So our inner experience and how we respond, though, is our key to peace. It's our key to connection and to creating unity. We can become masters of the inner environment, of our inner experience, moment to moment. One of the reasons meditation and mindfulness practice is so essential is it brings spaciousness to our thoughts, to our belief systems, to our patterns. And if we can see, I'm wanting to blame, right? I'm wanting to blame. I'm attached to being treated with a certain respect, right? A certain regard for my status. I can watch that attachment, and I can see the fear that needs status or that needs to feel important. And I can let it go. I can love myself because I know myself, and I know I'm precious, and I know I'm valuable, I know I'm worthy, I know I'm loved. And I'm also able to forgive and offer some grace when someone's having a bad day or being a Grinch, right? So much has to do with that space between feeling reactive and what we choose to do with that, right? And then how we choose to act, right? Either with a reaction or with a conscious response. That choice right there, that moment in time can either end a friendship, it can either start a war, or it can be the beginning of healing. It can set the stage to de-escalate a situation. So I was thinking a lot in the last few weeks about how important it is to not take things personally. I actually started off writing a talk on that, and then it morphed into this. But I remember the first time I went to India, it was 1994. I landed in Madras, and I saw painted on the wall a quote from the Bhagavad Gita. And it's just a fantastic quote. The quote is, "One who receives praise and blame with equanimity, who speaks with restraint and remains content with whatever comes their way, is dear to God." That's powerful. And then I arrived at Amma's ashram, and I saw the same quote painted on the wall, just a shorter version. And that said, "Learn to take praise and blame the same." Now that's a tall order. How many people here enjoy praise? Come on. Hands up. How many people enjoy being blamed? Not a hand goes up. Naturally we love praise and we don't enjoy blame, right? It's not easy to not feel defensive when we are being blamed for something, right? As a minister, 9 years now, I often get projected on. I'm the person in charge, and sometimes I'm seen as the mommy figure or the authority figure. In psychology, they call it transference. And it's very common for ministers to receive this. And I cultivate a lot of patience. I really do. I have to work hard at it. And what I'll be available for or not. I have to work with healthy boundaries. But this is kind of, all of us have to do this. This is just a life lesson. We have to learn to not be codependent. And at some point, we realize we're all responsible for our own happiness. As Gary said, I so enjoyed your talk, Gary. I hope you don't mind. I'm going to quote you a few times. He could say it better, but I'm going to quote what you said last week that I love. The new consciousness is that we are co-creators with God, not children of God. It's time to grow up and be the co-creators that we are capable of being. And that means empowering ourselves through self-responsibility. And there's a wonderful teaching story in Buddhism. It's called The Angry Man and the Gift. Tell them I'm not available right now. So this story is called The Angry Man and the Gift. And there was a man who went to see the Buddha, and he shouted insults at the Buddha. And he kept on texting him. He was shouting insults, he was texting insults, right? And the Buddha sat there, serene as usual, and he took a few breaths, mindful breaths in the silence. And then he asked the man, if you buy a gift for someone and that person does not take it, for whom does the gift belong? And the man said, well, it remains mine. And the Buddha replied, it is the same with your anger. If I do not accept it, it falls back on you. And so that story, it's not that we want anyone to suffer. We don't want the angry person to suffer. It's more that we are a clear mirror. We're a clear mirror, and if they can't place blame for their unhappiness outside of themselves, they might realize, oh, I need to look within. I need to look within and see what's causing this unhappiness. And they may see, oh, it's craving. It's craving for something. It's craving for status, or it's craving for attention. It's craving for acknowledgement, right? Or attention, right? Gary writes in The Universal Human, that's my favorite book of yours. This is such a great quote. Fear is being controlled by the world around you, always needing to change it in order to feel safe and valuable. Fear is distance from others. Fear is judgment and need. Fear is self-loathing. So when our fear goes unexamined, that's the thing. When it's on autopilot and we're just reacting to situations and relationships, we might think we can solve our pain, right, by demanding that someone change or some situation changes. Or by deleting them from our hearts or deleting them from our lives. We think if we just change the world, if we can just change the behavior of that person or circumstance to satisfy the fearful self, right, then we'll be okay. But that's very temporary. That doesn't last, that kind of change. Again, it's the ducks in the row. You try to get them all lined up, they don't stay lined up, right? Situations, circumstances, people, they don't stay lined up, right? Everything is going to do what it's going to do. And so a better idea is to heal the unhealed parts of us that have the problem, right? Or else they'll get activated. They'll get activated again. We can be sure of it. So our freedom lies in recognizing that it's far wiser, it's far more permanent to explore our inner state and learn how to embrace our difficult feelings without acting on them through trying to control the world. I often think of Jesus' words, I am in this world, not of it. I have overcome the world. To me, that is saying, I am so poised in the truth of myself, in the love I am. I am so centered in that the world can be as it is. And, it doesn't touch me. You watch a great soul, you watch a great master, you watch Amma. Things don't stick to her. Nothing sticks to her. She is in that overcome the world, poised in self state of being. And we all have that capacity, right? It's that, the Buddha's sitting there with the angry man, and He's just in equanimity. He's in peace. And maybe we feel feelings. I mean, I know when I have difficult experiences, I feel my feelings fully. But I pause and don't act from them if they're going to cause any suffering, right? I remember years ago in Oroville, when I first started that church, or first started there, I started a choir. And it was just, nobody had to audition. Everybody just came and sang. I wanted everybody to have a chance to sing. But there was this one woman in the choir who really wanted to solo. And she, unfortunately, she sang off key sometimes. But, I didn't want to be too picky about it because I want everybody to get a chance to sing. And usually with the choir, there's some good, strong singers that they'll hold it all together. We don't quite sound like Tabernacle Choir, but we sound pretty good. Well, this just kept going on, and then this person kept insisting that she do the solo. So I finally, one Sunday, I said, okay, you do the solo. And after service, I got complaints. I got a handful of complaints. So the next week, the choir practice, and the woman was demanding to sing the solo again. And I had to say, I'm sorry, but no, I'm gonna let a more experienced singer sing the solo this time. And she just got so angry, she just left in a huff, and she went home and she wrote me a really attacking, blaming email that was not easy to read. And so, I mean, I looked at that as this great opportunity to not take things personally and to see if I could take praise and blame the same. And I realized I had a lot more work to do on that. A lot. I mean, a whole lot. And I've been working on it ever since, and I'm still working on it. But what I've learned to do is I'm getting better as the years go by and pausing between my experience of being blamed and criticized and how I then respond to it. And what helps tremendously is to be able to watch my reaction. And that's what mindfulness training is. You watch yourself. And I get in touch with all my feelings. I am a feeler, and I let myself feel it all. And, I feel the injustice of the blame, right? I feel the outrage of that. I feel the pettiness of finding fault when there are 100 things to find good in, right? But I also, and this is important, this is a piece, I review my own actions. I do look at them. I look at my intention. Was it coming from love? Was I coming from love? Was I coming from a pure intention to serve? And in that case, to serve the congregation with the best music possible. And if I know I did my best, and I was coming from love, then I feel at peace. And it becomes more clear that maybe this problem is more about that person than about me. If you read Don Miguel Ruiz's book, The Four Agreements, and the one about don't take things personally, that's what he says. It's not about you, to not take it personally. But I do consider myself, and I take time also to consider the person's state of mind, to become aware of how they were triggered. And sometimes if I feel there's openness in that person, I'll invite a conversation. Sometimes that goes well, right? If the person has some measure of humility and their heart is guiding them, right, versus the ego. But sometimes people are completely stuck in an identity of a victim. Right? And they're attached and they're dug into their position of being right, and they refuse to self-examine. And so when that's the case, I just let go. I let go and I hold a prayer for clear seeing and healing. And I hold a vision of peace between myself and that person, even if it's not appropriate to interact anymore. We can honor healthy boundaries without closing our hearts. That's a really beautiful truth. So when we were in the grief circle, I was sharing that I feel sadness, though, at how people are so willing to just throw away a friendship or throw away something good because they want to be so right in their ego that they'll just throw away something so precious. That hurts me. But I chuckled, Gary, when you said last week, we have time, right? We have time. There's time. My mom used to always say that. Remind me of eternity. And that even if we've chosen 100 times to not self-examine, that 101st time, we might say, could this be about me? could this be about me? Could there be some work for me to do on myself? We can always learn new skills, right? And ways to let go and live with a more open heart. And if we really want healing, if we really want to connect versus be estranged, we will keep that vision in our heart and in our prayers. And when we put that out, once I get past whenever I'm irritated with someone or angry, once I get past my irritated feelings or being treated unjustly, I always take time to envision that person and I meeting in some place beautiful in nature, and they're wide open, and their face is soft and full of love, and I'm all soft and full of love, and we embrace, and we heal and let it go. I envision that, and I put it out there in that quantum field, and it's already happening. It's already happening. Yeah. So now what if we're the ones that can't let go? What if we thought we let it go yesterday, but here's that story of resentment back with us today, right? Repeating. It's okay. It's our brains trying to keep us safe. Our brains have kept us safe for thousands of years. They tend to focus on what's wrong or what's unsafe or what's the problem, right? So we can explore what's going on inside me that doesn't want to let go, and how can I feel more peace inside? And, bring kindness and compassion to these parts of ourselves that are feeling emotional pain, that are feeling division or estranged in a relationship. I like Gary's quote last week. He said, "We need to experience the frightened parts of our personality. They are avenues for our spiritual development. We need to stop disregarding them or seeing them as nuisances or understanding them as punishments." That's so beautiful. That's so beautiful. Having fear or feeling fear is not something to fault in ourselves. It's built into our brain, right? But it does need to be explored. Why do I feel threatened by this person? Get to the core of that. Why do I feel? Maybe because they don't seem trustworthy. They don't seem safe, Or it might be they seem like they're getting more attention. And they're getting more status. They're getting more love. And I feel like I won't get enough, right? So I won't be valued. So I see it as meeting the frightened child within us with the God consciousness in us, right? It takes courage to see, I'm feeling jealousy. That's the thing we hate to admit the most, is jealousy, I think. I'm comparing and I'm competing, right? Maybe I can let go of doing that and know I'm enough just as I am. We might, see our need for acknowledgement at its core as a deep sense of unworthiness. And when we see that, we begin to heal it as soon as we see it. And we give ourselves the love and the acknowledgement. And we slowly become free of having to demand it from the world. And that's freedom, right? As we look closer, we see how our belief systems dictate how we move in the world. Our belief systems have everything to do with what motivates us. They have everything to do with our intentions. So we can change what we believe, and we can believe that we are beloved and that we are worthy simply because we exist. Simply because we exist. And then we become vigilant of how we are creating, what we're saying, what we're doing. And then we create a lot more peace and a lot more harmony from a healed inner state. So, in closing, I invite you to consider these questions, these wonderful questions in reflection. How can I feel more peace inside without having to change people and circumstances? That's your homework. I want you to tell me next week. How can I feel more peace inside without having to change people and circumstances? How can I learn to not take things personally? And what can I do to release belief systems that keep me feeling unsafe, unloved, or unworthy? What can I do to release belief systems that keep me feeling that way? I want you to tell me, because you have the wisdom in you that knows. So what I know for sure is that you are, each one of you, each one of us are so, 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 so loved and so worthy, simply because you exist, you are here, you are alive. And, we are held in an ocean of love, an absolute infinite ocean of love. And when we open fully to that, we are that. And we know we are. And we discover that. So may each one of us, each precious one of you, dear friends, open to this love and allow it to dissolve all our fear, as that prayer says, dissolve the fear and dissolve the attachment until we live in utter and unlimited freedom. Thank you.